One day I took my son to hunting, and we happened to have the worst time after experiencing something unusual there not knowing what it was. For sure it was not fun after nightfall. Now I'm going to tell you how everything happened on that moment. Summer came fast in the yearly pass. I decided that I should take my son Peter out for a camping trip as a surprise. He's been a fan of hiking like myself before him. Last year we went together and ended up killing a small deer for dinner, which was a lucky year for us. Peter even found some beautiful flowers for his mother, my wife Patty, who is always home sewing her clothing, though I thought it would be cool. We can go again this year after seeing the news that the day we chose to go wasn't quite too high in heat. I'm aiming to hunt for something new, maybe some squirrels instead. It was the middle of June when Peter and I went on this trip to the mountain located 4-hour drive away from home. I packed drinks and beef jerky on the way as snacks. Peter made sandwiches for us. He was about 13 years old at that time. The trip took us more than 3 hours to reach our destination in the early morning because I was driving much faster than before. I brought my sniper gun along with my son, who had himself a shotgun. We found a spot located between the trees in the mid-range of the hills and camped there over the night. I was able to hunt a few squirrels down during the day. Peter got one squirrel too on the way back to our camp. In the afternoon, we cooked the squirrels after cleaning them and boiled all the squirrels with some carrots and tofu. We ate so full that we could hardly have the strength to set the tent. That's what happens when you overeat at dinner time. The tent was set right exactly next to my pickup truck. At night, we weren't hungry anymore after having that big dinner together and just ate some jerkies for the night. Once in a long time, we can hear hunters out there still firing gunshots, sounding not too far from where we were camping at. Though after late night around 10, there weren't any more firing gunshots heard. We cleared the campfire off before going to sleep in the tent together. I laid my sniper right next to me just for safety. Peter and I had a little chat due to the fact we both couldn't fall asleep. I think commonly it's a feeling too excited to be back on hunting when we both happened to hunted squirrels like we suggested. Peter turns to me and asks me if I wanted to play thumb wrestling. I smile and play with him for a few rounds. This is something we often do when we're bored of being somewhere together or can't fall asleep. We were laughing wildly and going on the next 10 minutes, just doing thumb wrestling. I needed to pee afterwards and got out of the tent. Then I told Peter to try to relax while I went outside of the tent very quickly. I walk a few yards away from my car and urinate by a tree, avoiding going too far from my tent. A gunshot comes firing at that second. I felt it wasn't quite too far from our camp, nor seemed normal at all by hearing a sudden gunshot like this in the night. It sounded like the shot came just a few hundred feet away. I rushed back to my tent and saw Peter sitting up looking terrifying when another shot fires coming from the same direction. I whispered to him to stay in the tent, that I'll go check out what is going on out there. Something didn't seem right, I was telling myself. I carry my sniper and my night vision goggles with me after getting out of the tent. I walk down the hill and slowly go as I can to the lower ground. Then comes another shot ahead. I can hear a voice from my distance screaming, sounding like an old man who seems in trouble. I thought he might have been in trouble or being attacked by some kind of wild animal out here. I make my way into the woods and carefully watch my surroundings, my hands holding tightly grip onto my sniper as I make my way further towards the spot where the gunshot fired. It was quite a longer walk than I thought, going to find what the heck is going on. I wasn't even thinking why I would even leave my son behind in the camp. I was too curious to find out what was going on about the fire shots. After 20 minutes walking through the woods, I found a camp near ahead. A faded colored Ford pickup truck was parked beside a campfire. There was also a big tent beside there too, but nobody was seen around. I hid there and waited to see what was going on. About 5 minutes passed and nothing happened. I then waited another 5 minutes to see if I found something unusual. While gazing around for a while, I then saw an old man coming out of the dark, zipping his pants, like he went for a bowel movement. It appears he was just a drunk man who was firing shots on purpose to scare off his camp. He was talking to himself, saying something about being too cold out here in the night. I thought best I should just return back to my camp. On my way back to the woods before reaching the uphill, I heard something breathing a few yards away to my right. I look over my shoulder and find a deer on the ground. I went closer to take a look at the deer and found it nearly breathing to death that second, shivering on the ground. Somehow it didn't appear like it was shot down, but more like being taken viciously down by another wild animal. I found scraping claws around the body and the neck was ripped open. It appears the deer was attacked not too long ago before I came. I moved back and watched my surroundings before leaving the area towards the uphill. I fear there may be a wild bear near the area. When I came back to my camp, I found everything appearing the same as before I left. I walk into the tent and find Peter still awake like he was frightened. He asked me about it, and I told him it was a drunk old man making shots from his own camp. We went to sleep peacefully afterward. I was having a good dream, and then woke up from being too cold. The moment I was laying there trying to fall back asleep, when Peter was still deep asleep, I heard something strange. It sounded very near right outside of my tent. It sounded like something heavy was being dragged on the ground, hearing the sand moving. I quietly stood up and grabbed my sniper. The dragging stops that second, sounding like it was next to our campfire which had been put off. I was frozen and listening as carefully as I could. I can hear something grunting sounding like a mountain lion. Then comes another fire shot again from the same direction, and I heard the steps running away. I was too scared to get out of the tent to see what it was, so I didn't bother to get out, and couldn't even try to go back to sleep. Peter woke up after the gunshot, and I told him just to go to sleep. I didn't want to scare him about hearing something on our camp, before he wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. On the next early morning, we woke up at the same time and got out of the tent. I was yawning and stretching as my eyes caught something by the campfire. It was a deer lying dead on the ground right next to the campfire, like something had dragged it there. Now I remember the dragging sound from last night, wondering who brought the deer here. Peter didn't have a clue, but was also shocked at the moment. The deer's right eye has been missing like it was pulled out. When I look at the deer, I realize it was the same one I saw yesterday from downhill in the woods. Did a mountain lion dragged it all the way here to my camp? I tell myself the mountain lion must have been a huge one being able to drag a deer this big up to our camp. Peter said we should just bury the deer or drag it back to the woods since it's no good eating the deer. And Peter was right, so we both dragged it together and threw it back downhill. I warned Peter to watch out for the mountain lion. As the day went on, we went hunting circling around our camp. We even ended up going to the old man's camp I saw yesterday. Somehow the old man had left the place and it was all empty there. I told Peter this was the spot I came by yesterday. All that was left was the campfire there, and some trash the old man left behind without cleaning up. Bullet shells were found all over the ground. We followed deeper into the woods after that camp and continue our hunting. I end up taking down a squirrel as Peter actually got 3 this time. It was enough for dinner, so we headed back to our camp. The day has grown late, and we were barely cooking the squirrels after cleaning them. It wasn't until another 40 to 50 minutes, then we could have dinner together. Peter was so in love with the squirrel stew that I let him finish it up. I told myself my children always come first when it comes to starving. It was a code I got from my father who was like me at my age, and I was around Peter's age when coming to hunting. After dinner, I helped my son clean up the mess and pack up the trash. I buried it on the ground that I dug. We sat next to the fire camp and talked about my time when I was Peter's age hanging out with my father who is very old now. I told him everything I learned from hunting was from my father and uncle. Peter wanted to call his mother so badly, but there was no signal on the mountains. We reloaded our guns just to be safe for the night and put down the campfire. It was around 11 that time when we went to bed, trying to stay up at least 4 hours after dinner before going to lie down. I told Peter once we wake up the next morning, then we'll be heading home for the day. At night we didn't play thumb wrestling like before and tried to fall asleep fast. I was getting too cold again, even though I was wearing my thermals. I needed to wake up and pee again, I told myself. The second I scoop my blanket aside, I hear steps. Approaching our camp, not knowing whether it was a person or an animal outside. I reached my sniper quietly at the same time Peter woke up hearing me. Something was walking around the camp, then came the grunting noise it was making. I felt the stranger, or whatever it was, closer to the tent. It continues grunting horribly. I wanted to fire the shot so badly, but my heart wouldn't let me do so. Instead, I waited patiently for the next move if it tried to break through our tent. Peter was even holding on his shotgun too. We both were targeting the grunting noise going around our tent. My heart was pounding fast at the same time. I could feel chill running down from my spine, ready to fire a shot. I can see sharp fingers' claws pushing into the layers of the tent. I fire a shot the same second it comes a horrific growl as the creature runs away. We quickly got out of the tent and checked outside. Unfortunately, it had escaped. Never knew what it was, and never have I seen anything like that before in my entire life. I fire a few times in the air just to scare it to head away deeper as a suggestion. Peter and I started packing as fast as we could. We didn't hesitate for a second and got into my pickup truck as I turned on the high beam light flashing the woods. I drove off to the road where we came from and drove so fast to get out of the mountains. After this trip, I stopped hunting for a few years. I always wonder what the hell was that thing I fired that night. For sure I knew it was not a man. With similar stories I heard from many hunters they encountered, so I believe there is something out there in the woods looking for something to eat. The thing only comes out at night, everyone says, just exactly like it happened to me and my son Peter. If you ever go hunting out there, be sure to have weapons to protect yourself and go in a group especially because you'll never know what you find or run into out there.